Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Unearth with Shelly Hughes podcast. I'm Shelly Hughes. In this podcast, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of business ownership and entrepreneurship. We talk about the lessons learned, the wins, the challenges, really what it takes to grow a passionate, profitable brand. Today, I am going to be talking about a topic that is weirdly controversial. Um, and it's come up in um, a lot of the conferences I go to, or at least I used to go to, that were really female focused. And it's this concept of being a girl boss, a lady boss, any of those terms. Um, we know the background of this. It was kind of we were coming out of this really booming era of women taking over leadership positions, of women opening businesses. There's been a couple decades of women working outside the home. And it was this era that I think was really well intentioned of giving women and empowering women, which we can talk about that word empowering, which I don't like very much at all, to feel like that they can, shatter the glass ceiling, all that kind of stuff, right? And I worked with a lot of female business owners, a lot of female leaders in my early career, and a lot of them really jumped on this concept of being a girl boss, and I loved it. I ate it up. I It was exactly who I wanted to be. I wanted to be this, this feminine, powerful figure. But really, and we can get to this in a bit, I it almost made me reject femininity, which is so interesting. I think in our culture, um, I experienced this in school and not really from others necessarily, but what I really internalized is I think our culture and in turn what I did is and still do sometimes that I'm trying to work through is I really valued masculine tendencies and characteristics over feminine tendencies. And I think when I had female leaders, I really looked at, okay, what are the masculine tendencies that they're doing and how can I do more of that? Um, so anyway, when a lot of my, bosses and things like that, they took advantage of this term to really up themselves and say, hey, women can be this too, which I think had a lot of really great intentions at the time. We know that the term girl boss has kind of been squashed since then, but I hear it a lot still. And although it has good intentions, it does not even the playing field for women in leadership positions in business, um, because I think it still shows when you use that qualifying term, it still shows that women are still, to this day, not considered equal to their male counterparts. On the other hand, I think we're incredibly equal. And so that's why, my reasoning behind this, I'm still working through it. And I would love to talk to anyone about this who kind of feels a similar way. Um, because, you know, I fully think that I am equal to my male counterparts in a lot of different ways. I think that biology is a thing, right? So I can do the same thing that my male counterparts can do to an extent. So it's this weird dichotomy of, we are not equal to our male counterparts simply because we are a different biology. Our bodies work very different. We have different strengths than they have, right? Um, But I never wanted my genitalia, essentially, to help me get to positions, that my male counterparts couldn't do. So that's why to this day, I haven't sought after going after any women-owned business certifications just because I didn't understand why that was important. Why does my gender have anything to do with business ownership? I do think that having connections with other women business owners or, if you're a Black business owner, other Black business owners, because I do think that there are certain connections that you can make and work through certain problems that maybe other, um, you know, very specific problems that other people maybe can't relate on. At the same time, having other conversations with people of other sexes, other, genders, other races, so you can get different points of view, of course. I'm not saying I won't do this in the future, but I never wanted to kind of qualify myself as a woman owned business. I am simply a business, and I'm a business that's doing really good things in this world. And so I want to go through three kind of reasons and things that kind of implore you to maybe think about when it comes to this term of girl boss, and really why I don't use it. And it's not something I really embrace in this entrepreneurship culture. The first thing, and I said this before, is really the qualifying word. It, Girl boss is qualifying the word boss. And again, people are having great intentions when they're doing this, but adding that qualifier is actually very damaging to, the person that you're associating it with. Um, I am the person in charge. I am the boss. I'm very good at what I do. I'm very good at leadership. And when you put a qualifier on something, it, you know, it makes it so that leaders are not judged by their leadership skills, by their executive obligations and how they perform those, making decisions. It's really, it's all those things should be exclusive of gender. And it's really weird. You don't call a man boss. You don't call an African American a black boss. You don't call Tim Cook a gay boss. Those terms don't exist. So why is it that girl boss has to be the single qualifier of the word boss, right? And I think what it does, it really enforces some of these negative stereotypes that come with femininity, come with being a woman. Um, and it makes it so that the word boss, it seems like it's inherently masculine. And of course, that's not the case. The word boss does not come with any type of gender associated with it. It doesn't say that in the dictionary. Um, but when you put a qualifier to the word, it's kind of making it so that that word is leaning more towards the opposite, right? And so I think that's really damaging. That, why does there have to be a qualifier on this when, we don't qualify it in any other way other than for women? Um, the other thing with this is the term girl. It's very odd to me why, um, maybe because woman boss doesn't flow off the tongue as well. But, using the term girl for profession, especially in a professional setting, I think is extremely inappropriate, right? It's kind of that throwback of when girls were fetching coffee when the only job that they had was, being a secretary in an office. Um, and they were kind of acting as that servant for their male, a lot of times white bosses, right? They were enduring a lot of sexual harassment. It's kind of taking us, it's a throwback to that era of thinking about women in an office setting as a girl and not a professional human being. Um, and it's you also, at the same time, you don't call a man in your office a boy, right? So it's this, like, it's kind of making women in professional settings childish. It's making them seem childish. It's making them seem mediocre, kind of less than. It's just a very odd approach to this conversation of wanting to bring up women in a lot of these spaces, because diversity of thought is so important in a workspace and something that I really work on. Um, and being that girl, a girl, or being a woman has no real effect on the way I lead, the way I oversee a team, which is so interesting, right? Because there are, men and women are different. I'm talking about this from a very binary approach. So attack me all you want, right, in the comments. But I'm talking about this in a very binary approach because it's the simplest way to attack it. There are biological differences between men and women, obviously, right? Um, when it comes to energy cycles, when it comes to a hundred different pregnancy, right? We cannot ignore the fact that women grow our population. And so, of course, they're not going to be able to be as efficient in the workspace during their, childbirthing years, and how that affects women and how that affects, their growth. That's a whole other conversation. Um, but also, there are psychological characteristics that are very different between men and women. And as I said before, men are, some male characteristics are, being very assertive, logic, kind of taking apart a problem and figuring out how to solve it. Um, those are very male characteristics. Just like the get shit done mentality. Those are very male characteristics. Pushing, 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 and kind of having this almost, this engine that can't wear out. Right. Those are very male characteristics that are really positive in a lot of ways. Some positive characteristics for women are the communication, being able to bring up a team, being able to gather the most important, brilliant people in a room to help solve this problem together. Empathy, right? Um, even it's shown, and one of our clients, we had one of our clients featured in a article all about this, is that female run doctors' offices, whether they are sports medicine doctors or surgeons or whatever, they typically have better outcomes than male run offices for their patients. And so I think there are a lot of good characteristics that women have. Um, but as I was going through school, as I was going through college, I always valued male characteristics so much better, so much more. And so it was always the get shit done mentality. It was, hey, how can I be assertive? How can I present myself in this really big and strong way? And I think this idea of qualifying the word girl boss had something to do with that. It kind of said that me as a woman is not good enough to be a boss. So I have to change myself to not just be a girl boss, but to be a boss boss. And so, you know, I have currently truly been working on just this year on realizing that about myself and saying, okay, how can I approach this come with an androgynous approach of, leading my team, leading my company from both male and female, with both male and female characteristics. Um, so, and I think I think for my third point, using this term girl boss is really affecting the next generation. I follow a lot of female business owners because I think they have a more open conversation about the and the entire lifestyle that it takes to run and own a business. They I appreciate when female business owners talk about their kids and their family and how life is so freaking hard when you're trying to, you have your husband who wants you at all times, which is amazing. I love my husband. You have your kids who wants you at all times, and you have your business and your employees who needs you at all times to survive. All those things need you to survive, right? So I think I follow a lot of women business owners because they talk about those topics more than our male counterparts do. And a lot of these female business owners, I see a ton, they post pictures of their daughters and, they say, hashtag future business lady. They'll say, boss lady, future boss, future entrepreneur, girl entrepreneur. things like that. Or when they're, I saw a post the other day, their daughter was selling lemonade, and I think a hashtag, not a hashtag, but they were just talking about how she was, future boss lady or something like that, female entrepreneur. You know, please don't do this. If we want our daughters, and I don't have daughters, so and that could be a whole other conversation, like I said. Um, if we want our children to grow up in a world where it doesn't matter their gender, their gender doesn't dictate how high qualitatively or quantitatively they get in this world, we have to stop using that word girl boss. We have to stop qualifying that word. Um, and we don't want to introduce gender identities, you know, in terms of what they can or cannot achieve. And it's so interesting because, in college, I was very interested in this topic. I was very interested in androgyny and like characteristics. And again, I was typically very like masculine back then. Um, but when I was going to write a thesis paper in my strategic communications capstone, all about um, how these companies are marketing toward male and female babies that are being born. And, I would walk down a Target aisle in the baby section, and all the boys' colors were really strong primary colors. The girls' colors were really more muted, blue or, purples and pinks. And okay, so we all know color psychology. So what does that mean? I'll leave that up to, obvious interpretation. But the other thing that I saw for infants, and not even for infants, for babies who are not even born yet. So people are buying these rattles, right? Giving them as gifts at baby showers for babies who have not even been born yet. And if you go to the boys section, you see hammer rattles. If you go to the boys section, you see rattles that are in the shape of hammers that are really these strong primary colors. You see trucks. You see, a lot of stereotypical boy images. When I went over to the girls baby section, I saw a diamond ring rattler for a baby who is not even born yet that you would be giving at a baby shower. So what does that say? Like I said, the color psychology is obvious. It's there and it's obvious. Um, but why is it negative to introduce gender identities and the stereotypes of them to such young people in our population, some still fetuses? It's showing that men are meant to build something great. It's showing when you're looking at a hammer rattle versus a diamond ring rattle, you're showing that men should value building. Men should value innovation. Men should value, using their hands and getting dirty and using their brain, right? All of which entrepreneurs have to do, by the way. Um, where on the other hand, looking at this female rattle or this diamond ring rattle that is in the girls section for, like I said, meant for fetuses, for baby showers, it's showing that women value getting married. It's showing that women value, people doing things for them, which I'm all for chivalry, right? And that's why it's a very complex conversation. Um, I think men and women are different. I think, I'm all for, a lot of times typical gender roles. But when you are offering these very different messages to babies when they're so young, and when you're calling your daughter when she's 6 years old and putting up a lemonade stand a future girl boss, you are telling them what they should value and how they're going to identify themselves in the future. And look, I don't think it matters what kind of genitalia you have. I don't care. I care and how I evaluate my employees, how I evaluate my vendors, how I evaluate my clients of who I choose to work with is how do you lead? How do you function? How do you communicate? And I don't look at gender um, at all when choosing someone. Your growth in your career should only be dictated by your performance, and that's it. And so, this is a bit of a rant on why I don't call myself a girl boss, but really it's qualifying the word boss is really damaging. Um, I am not a girl, and I don't know very many business owners who are. Of course, you can start an LLC when, you know, at a certain age, but that's beside the point. Um, and I think it's really impacting our future generations of putting these stereotypes in the minds of these girls and these boys that are separating us so early in life that we almost need that qualifier to bring us back together. So that's kind of my rant on being girl boss, and I would love you to disagree with me. I would love for you to agree with me. I would love to talk about this more because I don't have this conversation a lot with people, and um, I want to. So comment below, DM me. Please let me know if you have any thoughts on this. Please give this podcast a 5 star. That really helps get this podcast in front of other people. And I appreciate your time today.